Rodrigo and his parents were moving from Chile to the United States. The reason for the transfer was the work of the father, who was a policeman. He was very good at his trade, and for this reason, he had been offered a new position in exchange for a good sum of money. Beginnings were hard, because Rodrigo and his mother didn't speak English well, and it was difficult for them to socialize with others. The little boy began to talk to an imaginary friend. He said that he had the face of a cat. The parents didn't give it much importance. The boy was little and his imagination was free, so his mother decided to sew him a doll with a feline face like his fictitious friend, which became the greatest treasure of the little one. After some time settled, one day Rodrigo found some folders with files and photos in his father's office. He knew better than to rummage through his documents. His father would be very angry. The little boy saw that in one of the photos there was a person with an O-shaped wound with an X on top. Suddenly, the father entered the room and scolded the minor. He told his son that he shouldn't tell anyone about what he had seen. All that information was confidential. That same night, Rodrigo woke up when he heard his father talking on the phone. He was chatting with a partner on the case, and he was getting ready to leave. The boy couldn't contain his desire to know more, so it occurred to him to sneak out and crouch in the back of the car. The man, not knowing anything, started the car and drove to his destination. They came to a forest. When the father got out of the car, Rodrigo looked out the window and saw an abandoned cabin and two other people, who met the father. Suddenly, a masked man appeared on the other side of the window. That figure opened the door, and before the boy had time to scream, he covered his mouth and escaped with him into the darkness of the forest. Rodrigo was very scared. When the kidnappers saw that they were far enough away for the father not to find them, he dropped the boy on the ground and began to ask him questions. "Why are you here? You're with them? What am I supposed to do now? He's going to be mad when he finds out." The man was walking around talking to himself. "Oh, okay, I will give you to him. He loves children." He grabbed Rodrigo very hard, hurting him on the wrist, while the boy kicked trying to get free. "Stop, you're my only hope of..." All went silent. The masked man looked at Rodrigo for the last time and immediately fell lifeless next to him. The blood made the little boy dizzy to the point of losing consciousness. He seemed to see a tall, strange figure in the distance, but everything became blurry. The boy woke up in the hospital. His parents held his hand. He didn't know how he got there. He was not injured, but had suffered from post-traumatic stress disorder. The little boy's life changed from that day on. He didn't want to play with his friends. He hardly spoke to his parents, and he needed therapy for the following years. He only felt comfortable with his cat-faced doll, his favorite object. Rodrigo grew up, and he got used to events that began to be part of his life. Seeing shadows in the corridor, whispers behind his back, visions that tormented him in his dreams. His therapist told him that it was the result of the shock he had experienced. But something was changing in his body. The scar that had been left from that night's wound on his wrist had changed its shape to an X. Time passed, and although his life was improving, one day everything changed. He began to feel bad. He was sweating. He had an unbearable headache. His ears were ringing. He seemed to hear a voice, but it was all in his mind. From one moment to the next, everything went black. He woke up with a huge pain in his wrist. The cut no longer just had an X on it, but there was an O on top of it. That symbol, yes, it was the one he had seen as a child in his father's reports the day of the incident. He didn't want to say anything to anyone. If his father saw the mark on his wrist, he would associate him with those crimes. But that voice in his mind would not leave him alone. "Get up," he heard in his head. In the blink of an eye, the creature of his dreams appeared in his room, covering his mouth with one of its tentacles. "You're confused. Your questions will be resolved, but now you have to do something for me." Rodrigo would never help that monster, but suddenly his legs began to walk on their own. He didn't understand what was happening. As he left the room, Slenderman continued to speak to him in his head. "Your wrist was marked by one of mine years ago. He wanted to offer you to me." Rodrigo kept walking down the hall without having control of his body. "Your father killed my proxy. He was one of my most loyal, and now I need another." The first thing you will do is get rid of all the information your father has collected about me, and then you will kill him. Rodrigo entered the policeman's office. He found the folders the creature wanted and also his laptop. He put his date of birth as a password and managed to access all the confidential information. At that moment, his father appeared. The voice in his head told him to grab the gun from the drawer. Kill him. No, it's my father! The man approached his son to take the object from his hands. Pull the trigger. The creature entered the scene and strangled the father with one of its tentacles while Rodrigo was unable to move. The mother entered the room alerted by the noises and couldn't contain her screams when she saw her son holding tightly to his father's neck. Rodrigo released the lifeless body of the man. His heart was beating 1,000 per minute. No, it wasn't me, it was him. The mother cried inconsolably next to her husband's body and looked confused at her son. Rodrigo ran. He didn't know where, but he kept running. He had arrived at the cabin that night. Slenderman gave him his cat-faced doll. Reminds me of you. The young man grabbed his doll and looked at the city behind him. So he walked next to the creature, but this time on his own. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like it. And if you want to see more Draw My Life videos, subscribe to our channel. See you in the next episode!